Welcome to the Enlighten Up podcast, where I am going to take you into a deep exploration of what it means to exist in this current reality. We are going to raise your vibes, open your mind, expand your heart, and dive deep into the wondrous mysteries and possibilities of this lifetime. There's been a spiritual catalyst that has set in motion the awakening process of many across the globe to return to the knowingness of self and unite what has been separated. Together, we're going to bring light into that darkness. We're going to remember the joy of living. But most of all, we're going to turn up the volume of our own eternal power and do the thing we're here to do. Welcome back to another show of the Enlighten Up podcast, everyone. I have got a solo episode for you, and we are going to be talking about the role of the thinning veil and your relationship with the darkness. For a couple of weeks now, I have been getting this message to put out a video on how thin the veil is right now. And as I've been leading up to this time, I've been telling you guys that it's just October and November are going to be two of the most intense periods of this entire year. And to brace ourselves, one of the reasons is it's eclipse season. Another one of those reasons was because we had 3 planets this month that went direct. Next month we have another planet going direct. But there's just so many things happening just in the stars that are causing a lot of I want to say, pressure. Pressure is a really good word to use right now. But also it was just part of an intuitive message I got that it's going to get really heavy and to be prepared for that. And what I've been noticing from, my own life, but also from everyone I know around me and what I've been seeing in the comments and what you guys have maybe told me in alchemy is that everyone is going through some really crazy shitstorm. Like sometimes it's really good, other times it's really bad, or like it's both the same at the same time. And it seems that we're being overloaded with almost more than we can bear at times. It feels like everything is coming at you, like everything but the kitchen sink. And so there's just a smorgasbord of stuff that you're dealing with in your life, and it can be very overwhelming at this time. So one of the reasons why this is happening is because the veil is so thin. And when I kind of tuned into why, like what does that mean in regards to everyone being kind of bombarded with these really heavy energies that is pushing everything to the surface, is that when the veil is super thin, which it is extremely thin right now, it will cause truths to be forced to the surface, right? There's literally, when you think of the veil, if it's becoming almost transparent now or non-existent, that means nothing can be veiled, nothing can be hidden, nothing can hide behind illusion. And so what's happening within all of us is we're being forced to look at things that we have maybe considered not true or hoping weren't true within ourselves. And of course, this is reflected externally in our world. We're seeing it also outside of us, that there's just a lot of things that aren't making sense, or a lot of things that, are finally coming out and being revealed. A lot of the things that many of us knew were to be true, but media would have us think otherwise, and we're now seeing all of that is coming true and being admitted to. And this is a big theme when it comes to the thinning of the veil. Now, polarization is a big part of this. Polarization is showing up in a form of increased light and increased darkness, which again, is being shown and reflected back to us in the external world. So I've been noticing that there's almost like this, deep attachment, a deep attachment to the darkness and wanting to keep things dark, whether it's misery, whether it's control, whether it's sadness, whether it's manipulation, toxicity, whatever it is, keeping things hidden. There's an attachment to that darkness, but then there's also so much light coming in at the same time. And light is coming in through this fact that there's so many people that are awakening more and more to a lot of their own internal truths, not just the external truths outside of us. And of course, the external truth is a reflection of what's inside of us. So they kind of go hand in hand. But the thing is that when things get really bright with light, things also get very dark. And the reason being is because the darker a space is, the more ability it has to hold a higher light quotient. So if a room isn't that dark, the light, when the light comes in, it's not that big of a deal. But when there is total darkness and then a light is come on, like maybe you just light a lighter and you see the flame, or you light a candle, like it can just really emphasize things. And as that light gets brighter, right, you can think that it may like dim out the darkness, but this is where I want to really talk about your relationship with the darkness, because I briefly touched on this in a past video and someone requested that I go deeper into this particular topic, which I'm going to do today. But what I kind of got was that the veil is thinning right now, or it seems it is quite thin at this period of time, because we're facing a time where we're running away from our pain, or I should say, where running away from our pain is no longer possible. It's almost near impossible to do. I don't know if you guys noticed, but like there's nothing you can't avoid right now. Like it just seems at every turn, like the universe is throwing one more thing at you. Oh, don't forget about this thing that you're trying to like throw under the rug. Like, oh, and what about that thing, and this thing. And it just seems like it's never ending. It's never going to stop. And part of that is because of the veil being so thin and allowing truths to be seen. There's no room for illusions. There's no room for falsities. There's no room for lies. There's no room for avoiding it and pretending it doesn't exist. It does exist, and it has to finally be acknowledged. And this is what one of the periods that we're going through right now is. There has to be a deeper acknowledgement of the things that we haven't wanted to acknowledge. And what's happening too is that as we're kind of going through this deep polarization of extreme light and extreme darkness, that relationships are kind of blowing up, work situations are really unstable, health is all over the place. Like in my own life, I have never experienced so many people, like close people that I care about, going through some pretty extreme health situations where one of them I was almost not sure was going to make it. And there's also like, I'm noticing like relationships blowing up, just ending like all around me. I know quite a few people that this has happened, but at the same time, there are a lot of new beginnings. There are new things coming into play. And so what's happening is that things that used to fit in your life, whether they were, be it work or relationship, health, or something along those natures, they're not fitting. And so they're being removed, possibly replaced, or possibly transformed. Okay. But they just can't stay the way they have been. It's not possible. Like the energies are just not allowing for things to stay the same. Change is imminent. Change is imminent, and change must be embraced. And this is why that message came through that I delivered on the solar eclipse video that I put out last week. And also what I talked about on our live alchemy call in October is that if you can embrace the change right now, you will allow the winds of change that are blowing through our planet right now, through humanity. You allow the winds of change to actually carry you, as opposed to like maybe topple you over. Because if you were light enough and flexible enough and adaptable enough, the winds could just take you with them and take you to where you're meant to go. But if you're resistant and you're digging your heels in, you're going to have to exert so much effort. You're going to be so tired, and potentially you might just get knocked down. And it's going to be so hard to get back up because of the simple fact that you've had to exert so much energy just to fight it. And so change is kind of coming through, and there's no avoiding it. Emotions are running very high right now. Emotions are very high because there's so much hitting us. We're feeling overwhelmed. We're very taxed emotionally. And so emotional outbursts, crying, yelling, arguing, just who knows, maybe having like a crazy fit where you need to scream. Like, I don't know, but there's a lot of that kind of bubbling up. And it's doing it, so it's forcing us to address what we haven't been wanting to address, or it's also forcing us to look closer at something that needs our attention because we're missing details that are important for us to acknowledge. And some of those details are that this no longer is fitting in your life. It either needs to be replaced, transformed, or completely gone. Okay. So it's a very trying time that we're going through. And of course, we have the lunar eclipse in Taurus coming up next week, which Mary DeCina will be on this podcast with me live. She will be with me live. We're going to be taking questions from you guys in the audience. So if you want to have your questions answered, we will do that. She may even do some, she may even do some live readings on the show. So just make sure you're in the live chat if you'd like that to happen. But this lunar eclipse, eclipses are interesting because they can be very dramatic. They can bring in some very unexpected change. It can be welcome change, or it can be not so welcome change. It really depends on how you've been dealing with things. And so one of the messages that I got here when I was just kind of tuning into this idea of the thinning veil is that it's only going to continue thinning. It's because this is the awakening of this cycle that the planet Earth is currently going through, which is going to be, it's a very long cycle, right? We talk about 26,000 years, and we're currently in the upswing of the awakening process where we're coming out of that deep darkness. And so it's not going to let up, this energy. It's only going to continue thinning, and more revelations are incoming, revelations of self and revelations of humanity. Now, one of the interesting things that I got a visual of something that I've had a visual of before, and I haven't spoken about it because I didn't understand it. And I was like, the first time I got it, I was asking like, what is this? Why am I seeing this? And I couldn't get a clear enough answer. And so I just dismissed it. But it came in again today when I was tuning into this. And what I've seen is a flash of blue light surrounded by very, very high level white light. And it kind of comes in like in this flash, it will come in like all kind of not jagged, but like, like a flash of light. And when I tuned into it today, I did get more of an answer. So this flash of blue light is, I heard, were like tears in the veil. So even on top of the veil thinning, there are now tears in the veil, which I want to say are partially due to the depth of awakening that are happening in the individuals that are very committed to their journey of truth, journey of healing, and journey of not just external revelation, but internal revelation. And as I saw it, it was like a portal also. So this flash of light was also like a portal. And what I saw coming through this blue flash of light that kind of had white in it, but it was all surrounded in white as well. There were symbols, there were geometric shapes, and there were codes, almost like codes coming through, numbers, things like that. And I understood that the blue, these tears in the veil are allowing higher frequency energies to come through at this time, which is amplifying the effects that we're all going through. I do want to say that these high frequency energies may be causing some disruptions in our life, but the disruptions will soon turn into blessings, or they will become, blessings that were in disguise before realizing this. The blue light is the frequency of truth. It's the frequency of vision, and it's the frequency of authentic expression. And so there seems to be some sort of codes or symbols or geometric shapes coming through that are almost coming together in a network of puzzles. Like it's almost like a puzzle network kind of, like they're coming through the portal almost, I want to say separately, but when they get here, they're almost like matching up and creating almost like a network that is working with this field and a lot of other fields. When I say fields, I mean individual fields to deepen the awakening process for those that are ready for it. Now, this would be something that you've been really kind of calling for. I wouldn't say you've necessarily been calling for it directly, but you've been calling for it through your commitment to pull back all of the veils within you. Okay, pull back all of the veils within you. And so as a result, you're kind of getting like these upgrades through these tears in the veil, but they do come with a little bit of, I want to say, disruption to your life in some first capacity, because it's almost a bit jarring at first when the energies come through. So what many people are also experiencing as a result of these tears and also the thinning of the veil is a lot of mental breakdowns and suffering. This is partially due to the lack of attentiveness to how the last few years have impacted humanity on a whole on a mental level. Okay, the mental aspect of this whole entire process has been deeply dismissed and pushed under the rug, but also the truths within you are pushing to the surface. So you can't fight the dissolving of illusions of this current reality and the dissolving of illusions of your individual reality. I also heard that the brave are getting braver. And so I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but when you start to face some of your fears and you start to overcome some of the hurdles that you've needed to overcome, some of the challenges, the obstacles, when some of those obstacles finally start getting removed through your own willingness to face them and overcome them, a lot of the fear that you had and resistance to facing them starts dissolving, which in essence starts to really heighten your own courage. And you've got more willingness to really go for it and face all of the things that you're needing to face. I myself have noticed this coming up in my own life recently. There have been numerous things that I've had to overcome. I've been forced to start facing this since the springtime, and one step at a time. But now that I kind of look back, I'm like, wow, I'm like almost at the finish line. Like it's almost here. And it feels like I've noticed, I'm like, wow, like I can do this. I've got it. I've got this under control. And I'm really proud of myself for finally facing what I've been avoiding. So as a result of doing this, we've got a lot more bravery on the planet, which is oh, okay, how do I say this? It is putting more fear in those that want us to be fearful, is the best way I can put it. But that's only because the attachment to what was is just not possible anymore. So when we think about our relationship with the darkness, it is so important to understand that this is not a light versus dark kind of scenario. I mean, you can perceive it that way and believe it to be that true. But truly, what happens though when you perceive it from that from that point of view, as in like it's versus, not with, it's not light with dark, it's light versus dark. You've now created an opposition, which means there's a push and pull. And this is something that I have been really sitting with, this concept over the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, of really challenging the way I was viewing it before. And the reason why I was challenging is because I know that anything that you resist will persist. And so if we constantly are in opposition to something, that resistance is going to be, it's going to be reflected back to us, right? But also it's about not being in harmony with how things are here in this reality, but also in this universe. There's light and dark everywhere. And darkness has as much value as light. It has a role to play. And so this idea of transmuting your darkness into light is what, you know, I've said it before. That's what I used to say, like transmute the darkness. I kind of am looking at it from a different perspective now, because it's not so much about transmuting the darkness. It's about understanding the darkness has its role and being able to access more of your own light and bring that on when you want to. But the light is more available when there's a harmony with the darkness. And the darkness isn't all bad, you know, like, let's face it, there's actually some bad to the light. So, which I'll get to in a second. But when we think about the good in the darkness allows for mystery. It allows for the unknown, right? Everything that is in the light is seen, it is known, it is clear. Everything that is in the darkness is unknown, it's confusing, it is certainly veiled from total understanding. So not clarity. And so the unknown and the mystery are beautiful parts of this reality because it inspires us to trust what we don't know. And when I say trust what we don't know, I mean, there is so much that we don't know. And there are certain things that when we're learning them, we can't be able to prove it, but there's a part where we may not understand it, but we just know it is. And leaning into that trust is about leaning into the void space, the darkness, the universe, God, the cosmic womb. It's about leaning in there and being comfortable and knowing that you're supported, even though you have no idea what exactly is supporting you. So on top of the unknown and the mystery, the darkness also allows for rest. The darkness allows for stillness. The darkness allows for removal of all stimulus so that you can be aware of the one stimulus that you are, or the grander stimulus that is, okay, all around you, but imperceivable by your eyes, your ears, your nose, your hands, your tongue. And it's about learning how to reacquaint yourself when you have abandoned your connection. And of course, all of us in many ways have abandoned a great deal of our connection just by choosing to come into this lifetime, just choosing to come into this reality. It's part of the process. We become veiled as we come into this life. And so we choose to remove the connection so that we can learn how to find our way back. And the meaning is that every time you learn how to find your way back, it becomes easier and easier. And you start to learn certain tools, you start to learn certain tricks, you start to pick up on certain nuances that eventually, as you learn, you may find yourself in a place that's dark, but that is, you've never been to before. So this relationship with the darkness and understanding that there's good and there's bad helps you create some sort of harmony with the darkness. Now, when I talked about the light also having some bad to it, let's talk about this concept of like false light, or, only wanting to be positive and not negative. Like, this is something that we see a lot, where there's people that are spiritually bypassing. They don't want to face the fact that they're in disharmony with themselves. And so they don't want any disharmony outside of them, or at least that's what they're projecting. They're projecting like, oh, this is not vibing with me anymore, or I'm not liking this vibe of this person or this thing. And so I'm just going to remove it from my life. It's too toxic. It's too negative. And I'm just going to be like, high vibe all the time. And although there is a necessity to being aware of what's healthy for you and what's not, and not engaging with what's not healthy for too long, it's not that you can't engage with what's not healthy, because in order to heal something, you do have to engage with it. But it's about knowing that there's value. There's value in the toxicity. There's value in the low vibe, right? It creates contrast. And it also gives us a reflection to understand so that we can then apply it to our own selves. So this, if you're only willing to be like a high vibe person all the time, let's face it, a truly like high vibrational person or being isn't trying to be high vibrational. They just are. It's just a natural state that you get to from being committed to the healing process, committed to unveiling what is unveiling what is hidden within you is what I want to say, like helping the truths come to the surface. But people who are fighting the negativity and wanting to just say, I'm not low vibe, I'm only over here, I'm not dealing with low vibe people, that means that there's something within you that you're not in harmony with, or you're in resistance to, that you don't want to look at. Because ultimately, when you get to a higher vibrational state, from what I've seen in my own journey, and it's not something that you're always aware of, you have moments of it, because we fluctuate, right? We go sometimes into higher vibrational states, and sometimes we're in lower vibrational states. And that's the cycle of the journey too. Like you're learning as you go, and you're pulling energies from each one to kind of merge and understand what's going on. But there's a deeper sense of compassion for the quote unquote negativity. And I want to say an empathy that is not rooted in, I can fix you, or let me help you. It's not that. It's just understanding and being able to see that there's pain behind a lot of things, and knowing how difficult it is to get through that journey. So a lot of judgment is removed, And I think when we're in that, when any of us are in that state where we are like, I just don't want to be around low vibe, it's another form of judgment. It's just another form of judgment. I think we have to be willing to make space for the fact that there is going to be some negativity in our life. There is going to be some toxicity. Now, it doesn't mean that you stay in unhealthy relationships, but it also means that you're also aware that there could be just fluctuations within people where they're having a hard time or they're going through something really deep in their life that's like painful. And instead of like abandoning them, offering support where it's asked for. It doesn't mean that you're a martyr. Okay. It doesn't mean that you're a martyr. That's really important. You don't like sacrifice yourself for someone else, but you model the compassion, and you model the empathy, and you model the understanding through the removal of judgment. So knowing that the darkness has a role and a place that is equally as important as the light will help you in your journey when you're finding yourself polarized. And acceptance of the darkness is important because there's a lot of beauty in the darkness. And when you can do this, when you can accept darkness, that is actual true mastery. True mastery is not about becoming high vibe and completely eliminating darkness. In order to master the darkness, you must not try to convince the darkness that it needs to become the light. This is a big one. You don't, okay. When I've done a lot of my inner child healing, and even just my own healing in general, one of the biggest leaps I made in my healing journey was when I stopped trying to transmute myself. I started to realize that I can't change it, but I can accept it with love and compassion and understanding. And when I do that with my own darker aspects, the parts of myself that I don't like, I don't want to admit are true, and when I become okay with them because I understand how they were born, I understand how they were created, I understand where it comes from, with that compassion and that love, those parts of me that have been rejected now feel welcome. And that in itself is a huge moment in any part of the healing journey, because to reject something is to tell it has no value. It is not worth it to you. And so if we continuously reject parts of ourselves, we're continuously still telling us you're not worth it. And when you have a situation, say, let me just bring this back to, like, for instance, because relationships are just being tested like left, right, and center right now. Okay. Like all kinds of relationships are being tested right now. Instead of looking at someone as in they did you wrong, or they're a bad person, or screw them, which, you can have those emotions. You can go through that briefly. You don't want to hang out there, but you can go through that because that's normal. You really want to just be that neutral witness for a moment and understand that, one, they're playing a role in your life as much as you're playing a role in their life. And you and them both signed up for this particular role to be played out. And just understand that it's okay for things to come to an end. It's okay if something comes to an end. It doesn't mean that that person is a bad person. But as I've said in my TikTok and Instagram reel recently, is just because they're not a bad person doesn't mean that they're good for you. And it's recognizing what isn't working for you and what isn't, and just leaving it at that. and you don't have to put judgment on the other person. So bringing it back to yourself is realizing that these parts don't work for me because they cause a lot of chaos in all my relationships, or it's sabotaging my success with what I want to do to fulfill my dreams, right? Or it's leading me down a really unhealthy road where I might, run into some really big problems soon, like an illness or disease. And so you're like, okay, this isn't working for me anymore. So as you learn to accept those things, they are no longer rejected, meaning you've now removed the resistance. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, all any of us really want is to be accepted as who we are. We don't want to have to fit into someone else's perspective of or view of what they think we should be. We just all really want to be accepted for who we are, how we were created. And so when we can remember that and then apply that to all parts of ourselves, in how we heal the parts of ourselves, love, acceptance, compassion are very powerful frequencies. And when the understanding is matched with that, the understanding of why, the value of what that dark part of you is becomes very evident in your own journey. And you start to see how much this has helped you get to where you are right now, but what it's going to do to transform your life. So you don't transmute the darkness, you transform your relationship with it. And through the transformation of the relationship with your own darkness, this is how you heal. This is how you build harmony within the polarization of yourself. And then obviously that will get reflected into your external world, where you will start to see less polarization, more harmony, and less resistance. And so contrast is very important, and darkness has a value that should really not be underestimated. When I think about the fact that one of the darkest periods of my life was in my late 20s and let's say early 30s, but really late 20s. And through, someone deeply hurting me, which was truly a reflection of something I was avoiding within myself, of really taking a look at, they forced me to have to look at it. I was still kicking and screaming. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it. I was like, this person just keeps treating me like I'm not enough, And I know I'm enough. I know I'm enough. But deep down, no, I didn't know I was enough. I didn't know. And so I turned to alcohol, I turned to sex, and I just used those two things to numb me, I use them to hurt others unknowingly. And I became the darkest version of myself. And the darkest version of myself eventually hit a limit. Eventually, we all hit a limit of, I just can't sustain this anymore. I just can't go on like this anymore. Something has to give. Something has to change. I'm almost making me sick of myself, is a very common energy that comes up within us when we're hitting our breaking point. And of course, we all know, or we hear often, that breaking point is necessarily because we must break to finally allow the light back in. And so what happens is we're pushing all the light out of us, to in our own resistance to our darkness, which seems counterintuitive, but truly, when you're resisting your own darkness, what you're really resisting is the light. And so when I look back on those times, I now understand so many things that I can now see in others when I'm doing healing sessions with clients, or when I'm just talking to a friend or someone I care about. And I can instantly spot it because I was so willing to get so deep in my own darkness. It gave me the gift of hyper, I want to say, personalization with the darkness, that now I'm so comfortable in a sense of, I know it so well that I can easily spot it in others to help them face their own darkness. And this is ultimately the root of my greatest joy. My work is one of my greatest joys. When I work with each and every one of you individually, when I do these videos, when I put out a podcast, when I am working with you guys in alchemy, like, this is my greatest joy. And I would never be able to do what I'm doing today had I not gone through so much darkness. And so I value that part of my journey deeply. I don't dismiss it. I'm not embarrassed of it. I am not ashamed of it. In fact, I hold it with very high regard. And so when you can hold the darkness in a high regard and understand its value, you will then soon be gifted with the thing that will open your heart up and bring you so much joy and fulfillment. And this is one of the reasons why I don't believe we transmute the darkness. I think we can absolutely transmute things, but I think that to transmute light and darkness, it's just something about it that just doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't sit right with me. I think it's more about transmuting the relationship with it. And it's all about relationship when we're down here, because relationship is such a theme right now. I mean, I've talked about this with Venus playing such a high role in the eclipses. She's the ruler of the North Node right now, where Uranus is, and it's shaking things up. It's shaking everything you knew to be true up. And it's saying your destiny is calling, your future is calling you, and it's a very different future. And so with this whole theme of Venus playing a role there, but also being very deeply part of the solar eclipse in Scorpio recently last week, it's more, it's even hyper involved. And relationships are important because there's been a dehumanization of relationships over the last few years. We've forgotten how to truly connect. And as I said before on that solar, one of the messages I got towards the end, the channeled messages, was that, one of the things that's going to be playing out over the next, it feels like I'm getting like decade or so, like at least through the rest of the 20s, is this new way of showing up in relationship. And it's so that you can show up in new ways so that you create newer and healthier relationships. But also, how do you show up in new ways so that your relationship can transmute? Not transmute the other person, not necessarily transmute yourself, but transmute the relationship. And that's what it is. It's about transmuting the relationship with yourself, transmuting your relationship with others, transmuting your relationship with God, the universe, transmuting your relationship with the darkness, the devil, negative entities, all that stuff. Even like negative entities are teachers to us. We call them in for the most part, we create them. They're just a version of a part of us that we're calling in to use, and we use that energy and they play that role for us. And a lot of people probably don't want to hear that because no one wants to own that shit. But it's true. So when our communication with the darkness comes from a place of convincing the darkness it must convert to light, it devalues its purpose and dishonors the role of its very creation. And just remember, just because you accept something doesn't mean you have to agree with it. I don't agree that the way I treated people in my darkest hour was good. It wasn't good. And do I want to act like that ever again? No, I don't. I don't want to act like that ever again. But the only way to ensure that I don't ever act like that again is I can't resist it. I can't push it away. I can't say you don't matter, because that part of me is probably what matters the most. That part of me is what gave me the gift that is now allowing me to keep giving to others. And so transmuting your relationship with the darkness is so key. And with the veil thinning so much right now, and of course, there's going to be periods where the veils maybe thickens a little bit, but it's ultimately on an overall thinning, energy right now. And it's just because humanity's consciousness is expanding and expanding. It's just, there's no stopping this. It's just part of the cycle. The thinning of the veil right now is playing this role to force us to face the things that we haven't wanted to face. It's a lot of the rejected parts of us. It's a lot of the rejected parts of our reality. It's a lot of the rejected parts of our, the people we care about, rejected parts of our relationship. It just can't be rejected anymore. And in some ways, the rejection is, well, I don't want to deal with it. I just don't want to face it. Well, you can't get away with that right now. The energies are just not letting up. It's like you try to do that, 10 times the weight comes back at you. So it's really best to face what you need to face right now and embrace the change. And as I said at the beginning, allow those winds of change to take you further along versus using all the energy that you have against it, exerting it against it, only to know that eventually you're going to have to go there anyway. Take the free ride. Take the free ride. Of course, we never like to do things simply, and we never like to do things the easy way, even though we convince ourselves, no, I want to do it the easy way. No. I don't think we're wired that way. I think we're rewiring ourselves to maybe become more willing to go the easier route. But at the same time, the easy route eventually gets boring and you want a challenge, and it's time for something new. So the thinning of the veil, let me just see if there is a final kind of closing message here to come through regarding all of this, and also transmuting the relationship with the darkness. Forever it seems you have been going through this. We know, we feel this. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to end. It doesn't feel like the light will shine brighter. It feels like the darkness is enveloping you. And we would say, allow this to be so. Allow the darkness to envelop you and be embraced in the darkness's arms. There is actually some comfort available to you when you do this. It will be a sense of relief because you no longer have to fight it. You no longer have to exert the energy that you have been using so exhaustingly to try to keep things as they were. Things will no longer be as they were. And this must be understood. Change is imminent. Change is upon you. Allow the darkness to wrap you up in the womb of the cosmic mother. This place allows for the birthing of new potentials and new possibilities that are very difficult to see when you are in resistance to change. The very thing that you are possibly resisting right now may be the one thing you have been calling in and wishing for, but it is coming in a manner that you don't realize requires the removal of something in your life or around you, the removal of an attachment. It will feel like a loss. It will feel like a loss. And this is why there is a huge grieving process happening at this time. Many people feel like they are grieving. They are sad. They don't know why. They feel alone. They don't know why. There is a grieving for what once was. And what once was can no longer be. You are moving forward. You are all moving forward. This momentum is building. And soon you will be skipping ahead. But you won't be able to skip until you first embrace what is trying to envelop you. Be one with the darkness. Be friends with the darkness. Get up close and personal. Really connect with the darkness. Understand it. And you will see the beauty and the value that will reveal itself in due time. Not right now, but in due time, you will see the beauty that is revealed to you ahead of you, which is when you will be skipping. And you will know that as much as it has been difficult now, better times are ahead. And will make these times much more enjoyable with a lot of appreciation. Appreciation has been lost along the way, but will be gained very soon. Once you really get to the other side, and we've all faced this in our life, with anything, whether it be a small challenge, a big challenge, a life-changing challenge. When you finally make it to the other side, you kind of look back and you're like, wow, why did I fight that so long? I'm currently going through something where I was so certain I knew what I wanted. I was so certain. I was like, no, I know I want this. I know this is what I want. And I was convinced. And I was being told also that there is better. And when I say better, I don't mean like that thing was less than, but let's call it a better fit. There was a better fit for what I wanted. And what I wanted was true. It was what I wanted. It just wasn't in the package that I was expecting. So the package that I thought I wanted really wasn't the package that I wanted. And when I finally let go, and I said, all right, this isn't working. No matter how hard I try to convince myself that this will eventually work, it's not working. And I had to finally be at peace with it. And of course, as they say, as soon as you come at peace with something and you let go completely, like I mean completely, you've now made space for the thing that's been trying to come in, because you've been calling it in. But you're so focused on the package that you thought it was coming in, that you totally didn't realize that what you really wanted wasn't in that package. It was an illusion. It could be also that as you're growing, you outgrow what you wanted, but you're still attached to that. And so you don't realize that you've outgrown your own attachment. But it's so hard for us to break our attachments, especially when there's emotions involved. Well, most of our attachments are emotional, let's face it. But now that I have let that go and I've allowed for this thing that I've always wanted to come into my life, and I'm experiencing it now in real time, I am amazed at myself. I am amazed at what I'm experiencing. I'm like, I didn't realize this was what I wanted. And in fact, some things that have come through are things exactly that I didn't know I wanted, but I do now because I've experienced it. And I'm like, oh, I would have never known that had I allowed myself to experience something I haven't experienced before. And this is why we're so attached to the known. And this is, okay, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is the value of the darkness. Everything that we know, which is in the light, okay, everything that we know is in the light. We're so attached to it because we know it. It's comfortable. We see it. There's nothing we don't know really. I mean, there is, but you know, in that moment, in that perception, the unknown, which a lot of us, especially when you're starting to heal, you're calling in new experiences, especially in your relationships with friends, with family, with a partner. And you won't know what those relationships are actually like until you allow yourself to drop into the unknown, to trust that the darkness may have a gift waiting for you. And if you trust enough to have a good relationship with the darkness, that there is beauty and there is value in there as well, you might just be surprised and realize that there was more that you wanted that you just didn't know yet because you haven't experienced it. And so this is what's happening right now. And this is why I think there's a lot of shakeups in our relationships, is because we are calling certain energies in. But with some of those energies are going to come experiences that we don't even know, we don't even recognize. And then when we experience them, we're like, wow, this is so freaking good. And then you start to question, why the hell did I hold on to that for so long? What was I thinking? And clearly we're not thinking. We're just attached. And it's just that resistance, like, no, I know this is what I want. I know this is what's good for me. I know no one's going to tell me different, even though maybe everyone around you is telling you different. And trust me, there are periods where that knowing is certain and it's true. But I'm talking about those times where it's that unhealthy attachment. So I offer you an opportunity here to shift your perspective around your relationship with the darkness. How do you become its lover? How do you make love with the darkness and birth a creation that you didn't even know you wanted, that ends up becoming one of the most beautiful creations you could have ever created? We spend so much time making love with the light, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we need a balance. And so use this time, as the veil is very much thinning, to shift your relationship with the darkness in a way that births possibilities and potentials far beyond your own expectations of what is possible. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there tonight, guys. We have our lunar eclipse in Taurus coming up on November the 8th. Mary Ducina will be here with me. We will be live. We'll be covering a lot of stuff. And if you bring your eclipse questions and you put them into the live chat, we will be answering them. If you guys are needing any assistance, one-on-one sessions, or you are struggling to find people to connect with that would understand what you're going through, this is why I have the alchemy group. This is why we have the community and a lot of the teachings there. You can join. You're more than welcome to be part of our family. Also, you can work one-on-one with me in personal sessions. I would be more than overjoyed and honored to be part of your journey. Again, this is the gift that my darkest part of me gave me. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. So I love you guys. Have an incredible evening. And as all of this heaviness is coming down on you, as much as it sucks, because it really does suck, it sucks big time. It's so difficult. It's overwhelming. It's overbearing. But there is an energy here that we have created to force us to be pushed along further into our journey, out of our own comfort zone of what we've always known, and finally merge into the darkness and be willing to become friends with it and find the beauty and the value and the gift that awaits us in our darkest hour. Guys, I love you. Have an awesome night. Thanks again for joining me for another show on the Enlighten Up podcast. I love you guys so much for all of your continued support. So remember to raise your vibe, find your tribe, and be open to the infinite possibilities held in the mysteries that surround us all. Thanks again for sharing the show with your family and friends. And if you're new to the show and you need to find out more information about me, please head on over to my website, NicoleFrolick.com, where you can join my newsletter. And please follow me on Instagram, Telegram, and YouTube. Keep your light bright, and I'll see you next week.